I welcome all the participants in week 12, session 2. In this week, we are discussing about the communication. In the last session, we have discussed about the importance of communication in community work and social action, social development, community organization. And then we have also discussed about the basic meaning concept, and then barriers and then types of communication. Here in this in this session, we are going to discuss about the different models of communication. So just taking the same topic further. So the within the types, so two types we have discussed the different types of the communication: verbal, written, gestures, and all. So here, as per the in the field of the social work, the two types of the communication again is taken so important. Apart from the definitely about the verbal communication, written communication, visual communication, all are important. So dividing the communication further into interpersonal and intrapersonal communication. So communication can be broadly divided into these two. Interpersonal communication, that is also known as the IPC in general. So this involves the exchange of information, feeling and ideas between two or more individuals. So it is an external form of communication that occurs in various social and professional contexts. So IPC, usually we use this term in social work, that in the field work we have to use the term IPC, or sometimes the another mode of communication like IEC and all. So, but in the field work, usually we go with the IPC or interpersonal communication. Interpersonal communication, direct communication between two individuals, is referred to as one-on-one communication. Group communication is the exchange of ideas in cooperation among group members. We do in our field work the FGDs, focus group discussion. We also organize number of the group meeting like the Choraha meeting and then neighborhood meeting in the these very different types of the meetings we do organize in the community. So that is also comes under the interpersonal communication, that is maybe through the one-to-one or maybe through with the group, right? What is the function of this interpersonal communication? So building relationship, fortifies the ties on both the personal and business level, information exchange, conflict resolution, emotional support, definitely between two and between one and to many. This all are the important functions of communication. Channels of interpersonal communication, like through the verbal and non-verbal, we can go with and we can do this interpersonal communication, or that is called IPC. Next is about the intrapersonal communication. So the intrapersonal communication describe the person's internal conversation or internal communication. That's also known as the self-talk, self-reflection, and thought and emotional process are all part of it. Important features of intrapersonal communication is what? Intra means within you. So individual focused, it takes place inside an individuals without the involvement of others. It is consciously or unconsciously a continuous process, occurs constantly. Means you continuously, we are actually constantly talking to our own selves. So that's again very important to actually do realize of your own mistakes and to understand what to do next and everything. So that is what usually we consciously and consciously we talk to ourselves. So that's also helpful in self-awareness, assist people in comprehending their thoughts, emotions. It assists people in comprehending their thoughts, emotions and driving forces. Types of intrapersonal communication is about the self-talk, the inner, here it is the inner conversation with one reflects on decision or experiences. Like reassurance oneself before an important presentation, I can do this, I mean, I have this capacity. So this is what usually we are self-talk. Sometimes you don't want to talk with anyone else, so that's why that time you actually talk to yourself. So that is what the self-talk, again an important aspect. Visualization, creating mental images of future scenarios or outcomes. This is also we can call it as like the daydreaming and kind of things. So a sports person imagining a successful performances, and many times before going into the community and for doing some kind of the projects, we actually visualize a lot of things. This could be a problem. My supervisor would ask me to do this, and how I will handle this, and if I'll do something good, so how the people will cherish to me. And I mean, so this is all. Usually we visualize our future. Emotional processing, understanding and managing one's feeling. So example is reflecting on one's feels upset after a disagreement. So that is also emotional processing, or not always after any kind of upset disagreement. It's also some after some very good things happen. So we also do this emotional processing. Functions of intrapersonal communication are like making decisions. It's helpful in assisting situation analysis and optimal action selection. Solving problem promotes both logical and creative thinking. Once you talk to yourself, if you give time to yourself, you actually come to some kind of the logical reasoning. Self-motivation, again, for this is very important. Increase self-assurance and tenacity. Managing stress, anxiety and other emotions is much easier in emotional regulation. Personal growth encourages self-awareness and progress. So as per the Cornea, social workers need a self-awareness to convey attitude, to correct emotions and self-control. For this we need some kind of the intrapersonal communication, and we could also ask to our client to do the same. So many a time in the casework, we have actually using this intrapersonal communication to bring changes into the individual's life. So whoever is actually reflecting to self, it's very kind of the things which we actually self-realize, and it's about the self-awareness. So without self-control, personal issues and emotional attachment to a situation could be expressed, which could cloud professional judgment. So the situation should always be focused on the service user and social worker. Thoughts of their personal perfect solution may not coincide with the service user. So this definition says that how much it is important for a social worker to do the self-awareness, to do the this kind of the interpersonal communication with the self. Let's have a comparison between both the interpersonal communication. So participants definitely in the interpersonal, there's two and two more. Here no one is actually participating in interpersonal, that is only you and you. Nature is external and social interaction is here. Here nature is internal and it's about the reflection. Purpose is what? Builds relationship, shares information, resolve conflicts. Here in the interpersonal, it's about enhanced self-awareness, decision making and emotional regulation. Channels are like verbal and non-verbal. Here it's only about the mental thoughts, your internal ideas and internal dialogues. Feedback, immediate and from others. Here internal self-feedback or emotional response, maybe later or sooner. Now coming to the next topic, that's about the communication model. I hope you understand the basic idea of communication, and then the different types of the communication and the difference between intrapersonal and interpersonal communication. Let's talk about the communication models. Just bring very models to just to inform you, just to make you clear about the communication, because this is not a whole session of the communication. Otherwise, I will discuss more in length and breadth about the communication, because there is a lot thing has to be discussed into this aspect of the communication, as I'm also teaching this somehow related to these papers. So I do personally like this area of discussion. So but for as a community worker, what is important to know about, that is only I have sorted out. So communication models are frameworks that help us to understand the process of exchanging information. They explain how communication happens, the role of participant and the influence to external factors. So three major communication models has been there, and within that there are many models has been there. One is the linear communication model, is the simplest form of the communication model. It is one directional model, means sender to the receiver. The very first model has been identified as the Aristotle's model, which was also a linear model from one direction, where the message flows from sender to the receiver without any feedback. This model emphasizes the transmission of information only. It could be from the speaker to the audience. Transactional model is the second set of the model. Here in this transactional model, it could be a two-way. So this is not two-way. This is a two-way. Interactive communication model is the combination of both, is of the linear and the transactional model. Let's take a few models here. Another linear model, the Aristotle model, Lassell model, linear model of communication. Shannon's earlier model, later on the Shannon-Weaver's model was there. Then Berlow's SMCR model. So for just to make you understand or to discuss only few model, so let's discuss the Berlow's SMCR model. This Berlow's SMCR model elaborates the communication process by focusing on the elements like the sources, message, channel and receiver. That's why it's called SMCR model, right? SMCR model, sender, message, channel, receiver. It is more comprehensive communication model that builds on earlier models, including Shannon and Weaver's model, right? So, example, in a classroom, teachers is considered to be the source, visual aids uses as like channel, and then teach people, that is what the receiver, and whatever the topic she is in teaching, that is what the message. So, this is what in classroom teaching, this is simple, we are using the SMCR model, and right now we are also into this SMCR model without having any feedback just as of now. Later on, we are also giving some kind of the questions and you have to give in the answer. But even though this is not a complete communication, could be say, because I am communicating, I am telling you something and you are receiving. So this is feedback right now is not been here. So it's not considered to be a complete loop of the communication. So next, this is, I just have to bring this Berlow's SMCR model here. That is about the source, message, channel, receiver. Sources encode something, some messages, goes through the channels, and through this channel that has been received by the receiver, and receiver tried to decode, and then source, whoever is the responsible for the giving the message. Right now, as I'm the source, right? So I'm encoding something. So my encode would be based on my communication skill, how I'm able to communicate with you the messages, the topic to you, my attitude, whether I'm very, the kind of strict and very slow or very fast. So depending upon my own attitude, I'm trying to encode my message. As per my knowledge also, I miss something, maybe I added something extra. So depending upon my own knowledge, I have actually tried to code my or encode the messages as per the social system which allow here. Right now I cannot use so much of writing way. I cannot show you much of the videos. I cannot engage you with some kind of the skill lab or something like that. So whatever the social system which allows me right now, I have with my system, and then with this I am just giving my topic to you. So this is what my social system, and this social system is, this is about the system, I'm sorry, my social system is my surrounding, from where I belong to and all, right? So that is what the social system. Then it's also about the cultural thing, my cultural background, the way I have to communicate with you, right? So this could be the culture, could be and the communication skill could be altogether make my the language or the accent and everything. So if I were to belong to France and then Germany or something, I use some different, or even from the America and then England, the way I speak would be different the way I am speaking right now as an Indian. So this all matters. So again, the messages I encoded. Its importance about its content, its elements, the way I treated with the message, the structure I have actually have. As I do believe that let's added this communication part into this community work, social action, as I do believe that it's important to make the students aware on these topics also. So that's the way I structured my whole syllabus, and then I coded the things, coded the things, and then draw the things. So and then channel. It's about the hearing, you hear, seeing, you cannot touch right now, smell and tasting. So many times these three somehow is some confusing thing, but this is actually important, and they do also communicate, because once you cannot see, they can communicate through their some kind of touching the things. Even the braille languages, they actually do learn by touching only. Many times you smell something and some kind of nostalgia happened, okay, you relate with something. So this is also the kind of the sources of messaging. So many in the tasting, even many food bloggers and the chefs, they say that through the foods they try to communicate with the others. So that's way. So decoding is what you as a receiver decode. Maybe I am communicating with the same message, but as many of you are there, as you are actually studying this paper. So according to your communication skill, you try to apt and you can understand these all as per your attitudes, whether you have taken this paper as so important. So you understand it and try to study more, even from other books as well. If you have some background and knowledge of this area, so it will be more easier for to understand your social system and even your culture. So this Berlow's model is so beautifully defined that, but the missing part is about the feedback. So that's why I just given this whole system right now of as a definition, because here right now we are not having any direct feedback here. So later on some kind of the test would be there, but direct there is no kind of just moving ahead. Emphasis on the what are the important elements of this Berlow's model is that emphasis on the interaction. So Berlow's model stress the interactive nature of the communication, where both the sender and the receiver plays active role. It's not just about the transmission of information, it's about how will the receiver understand the messages, or he and she be able to process the message. It's also the Berlow model is very holistic approach. It's very holistic approach. It takes into account a wider range of factors: communication skills, attitude, knowledge, social system, culture, everything. So that influence both encoding and decoding. So this is what the beauty of this model, that how they have taken the different cultural thing and communication skill and attitude and behavior of sender as well as of the receiver into account. So that's again, if you look into if you realize this you could understand the importance of these two. It's a one-way linear model, as definitely. While Berlow's model is detailed than Shannon's model, it still treats communication as a linear process from sources to receiver. However, it allows for feedback to be incorporated into the model as part of the future adaptation. He says something about the feedback while he discussed about the communication, but he didn't actually put it into his model. He was actually discussing about the feedback. When you study somewhere the Berlow's model, you find that Berlow's has talked about the feedback, but I don't know what reason, unfortunately, he did not added into his model. Shannon-Weaver's model is this the Shannon-Weaver's model? It's also a linear model. Here the information source is the sender, transmitter is the encoder, receiver is the decoder, and receiver is the reception. Here he added two things. One thing is about the noise. Shannon in the earlier model doesn't use the feedback, but as later on the Shannon-Weaver model had actually uses this. So this sender originates the message, encoder converts the message into a form of suitable transmission, speech or written, whatever way. The message travels through the channel, and then the channel that could be the airwaves, through some telephonic lines, so through email and all. Noise is what is that can interfere with the signal during the transmission. So this noise could be considered to be as a barrier. So in this model, it's the noise has been taken as an important aspect which has been added here. Decodes, the receiver decodes the thing into the meaning. Feedback is provided the process a loop back to the sender. So this is what feedback. Then once the sender has given this and it goes to the receiver. So this is what it's about receiver has received something and giving feedback to the information source. So this makes the whole communication as a complete loop. So limitation of the linear communication model of all is a one-way process, lack of feedback, and then oversimplification. So here feedback has later on been added by the Shannon-Weaver. Initial years it was not added. So earlier Shannon model was considered as a linear. This is not considered to be linear. This became a more kind of the transactional model. So a transactional model of communication is two-way process in which both the sender and the receiver are actively involved in constructing meaning. Kumar believes that the transactional model of communication is the exchange of message from and between the sender and then receiver, where each takes turns to send or receive messages. Like, you send something, receiver receives something, and the receiver, after getting the message, give feedback to the sender, and sender, after receiving the feedback from them, giving back to the messages. So it's like once you communicate with someone, it's a simple thing. So this model emphasizes the content, or in your conversation, you say something, other party listens something, and then he speaks something, and you listen something, and after listening something, you give feedback, and then it's a continuous process. This model emphasizes the content of message and non-verbal cues, including the body language, facial expression, and tone of voice, so important, because it's about the transaction, and transaction in the feedback, everything matters. Once, as I've told you, that it's not only the words through which you can actually give the feedback, through your body gestures, through your blinking of your eyes, through your nodding of your heads, you actually give feedbacks, you actually, and through your facial expression, you give actually a lot of the feedback to the sender. Examples of transactional models where it has been used to face communication, FaceTime or video conference calls, phone calls, text message, social media posts, email letters, group discussion, focus groups, brainstorming. This, in all these, you use the or actually these all are the example of transactional models. One of the transactional model which I have used here is the given by the balanced transactional model of communication. Here in this model of communication is the theory that process communication as exchange between sender and receiver, both of whom can influence the message being sent. So, these are the general explanation of the transactional model, and this is the one very specific transactional model. As in the linear model, the very first aspect was the just explanation, and then we discuss about the more importantly the Berlows SMCR model, and then it's about the transactional model, and within the transactional model we have taken balanced transactional model. So, this model breaks communication into different components: encoding, decoding, feedback and context. So, context here has been an important part which has been added into the communication thing by this model. So, that the sender encodes a message with their thoughts and feeling before sending it to the receiver, who then decodes that message. Afterward, the receiver, provides feedback after decoding the message, provides a feedback on what was received, sends new message based on their own information and their own understanding. It creates a loop of mutual influencing between sender and receiver, making up what Berlantz calls transactional communication. So, overall, Berlantz transactional model of communication highlights the role of private and public cues that impact our messages. So, it's so important. That's also talking about the context. This public and private cues is about the context on which you are actually talking about, because many times you speak something, but on what context is important, you are talking something, that's again important, right? Right now you see that how this all print media, so not the print media, but the social media and then our media, general media are using and editing some messages of someone's, or using some very small part of some messages and actually air it, but the messages of that limited words giving some other message. But if you listen the whole video, you understand the context, on which context someone is telling something. So, the context is so important. As I have asked to my students, if you have to develop the assignments or write the answers just on the basis of the some PPT or PDF, so you understand the content, but on what context you have to actually understand this, and in what context this topic is actually you have to understand, that you can get to know only once you go through the books, because books gives you the context. So, content is important, but the context gives the actual meaning to the content. That's what the beauty of this model, which talks about the context. This is about the Berlantz transactional model of communication that comes under the transactional model of communication. The last type of the model is about the interactive communication model. In this interactive communication model, it characterized by continuous cycle of sending and receiving message, with each source taking turns as both sender and receiver. It's like once we actually interact with each other. As stated by Belgen and colleagues in 2021, an interactive communication model, it's all about the interaction, right? Interactive communication model implies that participants alternate their position as sender and receiver and generate meaning by sending messages and receiving feedback within physical and psychological context. So, it's about the receiving. One thing is very important: receiving feedback, sending messages, and within physical and psychological context. See, context is again considered to be important, as Kumar says that interactive model deals with the exchange of ideas and messages taking place both ways from sender to receiver and vice versa. So, it's like a continuous process, right? It's like a continuous process. So, under the interactive model of communication, I bring this Wesley and MacLean model. In this model, actually, communication is seen as a continuous and cyclical process that involves feedback and adaptation. Means you sender and then you giving message to the receiver, and then receiver give the feedback, and then you became the receiver. Then here you are sender, here is the receiver. You give the message to the receiver give back to you. So it's like a whole cycle has been formed. It's in circular aspect, right? So Wasley and Maclean model of communication is very sophisticated model that consider the influence of interpersonal relationship and social issues in communication. So it indicates that communication is an ever evolving process made up of three components: interpersonal, media and societal. That is what the in which social context you are in. So it is what interpersonally communication is exchanged between two individuals, that is interpersonal. Through media channels, these messages are relayed to the masses, as I have told you earlier. So this interactive model is the combination of both the linear model and then transactional model, right? So as it is the combination of both, so very first model is about interpersonal communication, that is the transactional aspect. Next aspect, through media channels, these messages are relayed to the masses, that's about the transactional mode of communication, where you transact something to others. It's a one-way linear. Sorry, as I have mentioned you earlier, so the Wasley, this interactive model is the combination of both the transactional model and the linear model. So if you look into this interpersonally, the communication is about the interpersonal. So as this kind of the model that Wasley and Maclean talks about, communication is exchange between two individuals. This is more a kind of transactional ideology, right? It's about transactional ideology. Through media channels, these messages are relayed to the message. This is about the linear ideology. So, on a societal level, broader social influences like cultural norms and values affect how people communicate. So, this is what the social aspect which is they have been added. So, as also in the the context is considered to be so important. So, this is what the additional aspect of this kind of the model, right? So, Wasley and Maclean model is that way is so important in understanding the in a present day models, present day communication patterns. So simply the Wasley and Maclean model considers the influences of mass media and communication by deliberating its larger social context, how this mass media is actually changing the overall life of the community, and then how they are so important and powerful, right? So in this model, actually communication is seen as a continuous and cyclical process. So let's have a final thing is about the comparison between of these three set of communication model: linear model, transactional model and interactive model. So direction, if you look into the direction aspect, so linear model is definitely a one-way model. Transactional model simultaneously it's a two-way model. Interactive model two-way and turn taking, means two-way, but it is also turn taking, means once you are sender and the receiver and then sender became receiver became sender. It's an interaction. Once you do it in at the time of the interaction. Feedback not included in linear model, that is missing there. Transactional model immediate and simultaneously, means immediately you actually give the feedback, and then included but delayed. Here interactive model included but delayed. It's not, maybe if you are doing through in the mass media, using mass media to communicate something, so just very immediately don't get the feedback, or simultaneously maybe in some editor thing you write something, if you write something to editor, even into the things are coming to the social media, you write some messages into the Dropbox, and also even you given the feedback, but it is not that way directly communicated. So maybe the sender doesn't look into your feedback which you have written into in some blogs and all. Maybe in that momentary they don't see that. So it's like included but delayed. Context, let's focus on the context in the linear model. This is just believing into giving messages. Consider social and physical context as an important in the transactional model. Here included context but less dynamic. because it's more about the media aspect. Example as TV broadcasts and advertisements. It's a face-to-face conversation. That is what the transactional model. Here, emails, text messages is considered as an interactive model of the modern days communication thing. While the transactional model of communication focus on back and forth exchange of information between two people, linear model emphasizes on a one-way flow of information, and the interactive model is the combination of the two. This is what the fundamental difference, right? As per the Hamilton. So, transactional model of communication believing in the back and forth exchange of communication or information between two, and the linear model emphasis on a one-way communication, a flow of information. Interactive model is believing in or taking the both ideas together. So, this is all about the today's lecture. I hope you understand the basic concept of communication, although there is a lot to discuss within that aspect of the communication, but as of now, as for this subject, you are studying this right now, the community organization, community work and social action. For that, this much of the information of the communication, or to develop the good communication skills as a good social worker, as a good good community worker is important. So for that reason, this was the things which I thought that I have to discuss with you all. So in the coming sessions, we are going to discuss about the different aspect of communication. So that is about the development communication I am going to discuss with you, or I am going to discuss with you the social communication, social mobilization and all. So as an important aspect of communication. Thank you so much.